Miami's postseason kicks off today versus the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Heat got some good news and some bad on the return of Duncan Robinson and Terry Rozier. We'll give you the latest and what it all means. Plus, playoff Jimmy is having a moment before the playoffs actually begin. Can Miami actually count on him to dominate yet again? We get into that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com. Joining me as always, credentialed Heat media member David Ramil. However you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Let's start with tonight's injury updates. Duncan Robinson appears to be trending towards playing tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. Terry Rozier is listed as out. Kevin Love is available. And then David, for the Sixers, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, they seem like they're going to be good to go. But D'Anthony Melton is questionable after he missed practice for Philadelphia on Monday and Tuesday. So with all these injury updates, does this change what you think of tonight's matchup?
Well, I talked about this in our sort of playoff preview or play-in preview with Brian Toporic in yesterday's episode, how I thought Terry Rozier would be a X factor. I think the idea of him having those big moments down the stretch, as we've seen from him during his limited tenure in Miami, especially of late, right before the injury took place, was going to be beneficial for a team that's best chance of winning against the Sixers was to kind of play to their style, which is make things slow, drag it through the mud, etc. Everything we've heard from Eric Spoelstra. But now with Rozier out, that's not even a potential option. It's the other guy who's helped Miami in late game situations, especially since he came back from injury. And that's none other than Tyler Hero. I think this opens up the door for Tyler to be the player that could decide tomorrow's game. Like, there's so much writing on this for Tyler and his reputation. And everybody seems to forget the playoff success he had as a rookie and everything that he's been able to accomplish over the course of his career. He's fallen out of favor with Heat fans for whatever reason, the injuries. There's so much going on regarding his status. And as he prepares to define himself again in these playoffs, like, it begins tomorrow. I know he said he's not going to try to do anything other than just be available. And hopefully that'll be the case moving forward. But he could really change the perception of how fans across the NBA landscape view Tyler Hero, because he has that opportunity tomorrow. I think he's going to have some big moments down the stretch, and he could be the one who decides the game in Miami's favor. So there's some optimism there. We'll talk about Duncan and whether or not he comes off the bench. Kevin Love looks like he's back and available after having gotten that stinger in his elbow. But I think with the absence of Terry Rozier, it kind of simplifies things a little bit, because that's not just about trying to incorporate these two scorers into the starting lineup. Now there's a clear delineation. Your go-to scorer, as we've seen since he came back from injury, is Tyler Hero, and he needs to level up tomorrow.
He's averaging 21 points per game in the 6 games since he came back from all the foot and knee injuries and all that stuff. And he's been awesome, man. That's I had Tyler Hero listed as my X factor because he's just been that awesome. He's the guy who can pull up off those ball screens if Joel Embiid or whichever Philadelphia backup center that they decide to use is in the game. They like to go to that drop coverage, and Tyler Hero is the guy that's able to pull up best against that drop coverage and make those threes even better than Terry Rozier. Rozier is more of like some kind of like, he's more of like an isolation guy. He's a good pick and roll ball handler, but we've seen him sort of bail out possessions at the end of the clock. Both of them would have been great to have. Now that you have Duncan Robinson back, though, I do think you bring him off the bench just because you need to monitor that lower back. He's shooting 20. He's been out, like, basically in and out for a month with this lower back injury. The few games that he did play, he was shooting 23% from 3-point range, and then he missed 4 straight games with the lower back injury. Basically, the Heat saying, you know what, he's obviously not right. Let's put him on ice until he can be right. Now, is he right, or do the Heat just have to win this game tonight? It's a good question. We don't know. We were probably not going to know until the game is over. But I think if you're going to bring him off the bench to monitor his health, monitor his minutes, that means that we'll probably get Tyler Hero and Caleb Martin both starting again, which I kind of like. I like having Caleb in that starting lineup because, A, he's been pretty good offensively, and then, B, he gives you just another option to guard Tyrese Maxey and Kelly Oubre and all these other guys who are pretty dangerous for the Sixers. So I think that's going to be the starting lineup for the 5th straight game or whatever it is now of Hero, in Caleb along with the other guys. And then you bring Duncan Robinson off the bench and hope he can hit some shots. And the more I've thought about this matchup, David, I think the Sixers have the edge in terms of just on paper talent. I think that's a fair assessment based on what we've seen, even from a beat up Joel Embiid having come back from injury. If I'm the Heat, I'm shooting 43s in this game. I'm going for it. Just go. You're on the road. I know you've won like 24 games on the road this year, and that's an elite mark, but you're on the road in Philadelphia. Joel Embiid's in his comfort zone. He's had a few days off now. They should just come out firing, and that comes down to Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson probably more than anybody else, but I think you should come out firing and just try to, use the variance to your advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a really good point. I think you also have to rely on depth too. Like, I think this version of Miami is deeper than Philadelphia's, even though maybe the Sixers team is deeper than they have been in years past. I still like Miami's depth as a greater advantage, as greater strength than Philadelphia's. And I mean, I would just be, again, we talked about the coaching matchup yesterday, and I'm still not sure how it plays out, but just this idea of like sending wave and wave after fully healthy player, because you're going to have to incorporate Duncan and see whether or not he's able to go for even an extended period of time. Like Kevin Love, impactful in his last matchup against the 76ers. Is he back to full strength? Yeah. It's like you just got to be able to continue to rely on your depth. I think I still say DeLon Wright should get some minutes, because throwing him into this opportunity is a good one for him to show, what, this is why you brought me here. So I'm curious to see how it all plays out that way. Like, again, just sending player after player with the edict, as you just said, shoot the lights out, make it happen. Yeah. And this is Miami's path to success, so we'll see how it plays out. This would be a sharp contrast in style to everything I just said, playing in the mud and everything that they've done over the last few years.
No more
that
mud.
has been their identity.
No more mud. I'm sick of the mud.
Can they get out of the mud?
mud?
I mean,
just get
save
yourself
the mud
out
for
of the
the
mud.
Knicks, baby.
Save
the mud for the Knicks. Yeah.
Save your mud. Just shoot the lights out in this one. And by the way, you're right. That has sort of been their MO, except last year's playoff run, which was predicated basically on three-point shooting and huge Jimmy Butler games. And so this is the playoff formula. It's like, all right, we're just going to be in the mud for 5 months out of the year during the regular season, and then the playoffs roll around, and then we're going to shoot 39% from three-point range. Guess what? It works. You mentioned Kevin Love. I think that's such a great point in terms of the depth. Philly's depth is a little bit better. It's still pretty shaky. Miami, I think the Heat's second unit, first of all, outscored the Sixers' second unit the last time these teams met at the beginning of the month. Philadelphia won that game 109-105, but obviously a close game based on that score. And a big reason Miami was in this game was because of their second unit. Kevin Love was a plus 25 in the game, 11 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, took 6 3-pointers in that game, but only made one of them. I feel like he would make more of those if given another 6 in this matchup. You bring Haywood Highsmith off the bench. Jaime Jaquez is starting to find a little bit more of a rhythm since the beginning of the month.
Yes.
You mentioned guys like DeLon Wright. Maybe he can get in the game. Even a guy like Thomas Bryant, if depending on what Kevin Love looks like he can probably give you some minutes here. But having Kevin Love, Haywood Highsmith, and Jaime Jaquez as sort of those three coming off, and Duncan Robinson, those 4 coming off the bench, I think it just trumps anything that Philadelphia is able to do. Paul Reed is kind of a trick or treat type of player. I'm not a big KJ Martin guy. I think he gives good effort, but that's about it. Really no discernible basketball skills outside of jumping. Campaign is another trick or treat guy. Buddy Hield is a trick or treat guy. So that's the nature of a one game sort of matchup here, is that Campaign can just go like southpaw 40 points on you off the bench, and who knows, and that's it. Or Buddy Hield can finally find his stroke since coming over from the Pacers, and that'll do it. But at the same time, the Heat can do the same thing, right? At the same time, Tyler Hero can go off. Duncan Robinson could go off. Heck, Caleb Martin or Haywood Highsmith or Kevin Love, all these guys can just sort of chip in 12 to 15 unexpected points. And next thing you know, the Heat are the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. So
back in the mud.
Back in the mud, back into the playoffs. So we'll see, obviously, what happens tonight. Should be a good one. Coming up next, is playoff Jimmy Butler really a thing? We try to figure it out next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? You ever wonder what adventure could be just around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. I've talked about the 24 Nissan Rogue. You've seen them around town. Obviously, they're a very great car just for city driving, but they've also got the power that you're looking for your next big adventure. There's so much to like about that car, from their big infotainment system, a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen. It's got this great navigation system. Everything you're looking for, any kind of convenient feature, you'll find it in the new Rogue. It's the perfect midsize crossover. But if you're looking for something a little bit bigger, then go try out the Nissan Pathfinder. It seats up to 8. It's got expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower. You don't have to sacrifice the kind of power you're looking for in an SUV. And if you're looking for the combination of power and luxury, try the 24 Nissan Armada. It will change what you think from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class style. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next adventure. Go shop Nissan USA. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime, the scoreboard's not looking good. You're down a bunch, You're feeling low, not sure if you or your team can pull out a win, and that's when you dig deep. You lift your head up and you say to yourself, time to get back in the game and pull off some bank heists and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your friends. And there's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. You can make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent with your iconic properties, and you can even work together with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. For all of our NFL fans, the Locked On NFL mock draft is going live April 17th at 7 Eastern time. So kind of in the middle of all this play-in mix, but you can also follow it afterwards too if you want to see who the Locked On local experts are picking in this ultimate mock draft. You will not want to miss that if you are an NFL draft fan. So the NBA came out with a new social advertisement with various players claiming to be their playoff alter egos, or claiming that their playoff alter egos are not a thing. Obviously, based off Jimmy Butler's claim that playoff Jimmy Butler is not a thing. We have some of the sound here.
Is playoff Jason a thing?
Nah, playoff Jason is not a thing.
Okay, Tatum, we all know it's a thing. Look at the evidence. Just ask playoff Spider.
It's not a thing.
Playoff Brunson can't deny it.
I mean...
Is that official?
Oh, wait, no.
Are you serious?
Not a thing.
Oh, I see. You got the whole league in on this.
It's not a thing.
Come on. We finally get to see playoff Giannis play with playoff Dame. Right, Dame?
It's not a thing.
It's clearly a thing.
So there's Chris Rock involved in the advertisement and various players, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brunson. The Joker was in it, Damian Lillard, Anthony Edwards. I might be missing a couple more. But this came out the same week, David, that Jimmy Butler had his Slam cover story come out. And in that piece, he claims that that playoff Jimmy isn't a thing, but that like tennis Jimmy is, dad Jimmy, coffee Jimmy, like all the various other Jimmys are a thing, right? But playoff Jimmy is not a thing. Are you buying or selling playoff Jimmy as a thing?
No, I'm buying that playoff Jimmy is a thing, but I'm also selling the NBA for that ridiculous campaign. Like I cannot believe that they're trying to piggyback on that. Like this idea that those players in particular are playoff eligible or heighten their games to some degree. Absolutely ludicrous. I don't think anybody's ever looked at playoff Jason Tatum and been like, oh, that guy's our savior, as he craps his pants late in the fourth quarter in a game 7. So I don't know how anybody at the NBA was like, you know what? Let's just start marketing the idea that these players are all significantly better during the postseason and see if enough people believe in it. We'll have Chris Rock yelling at everybody so that maybe it kind of sells it a little bit more poignantly. But Donovan Mitchell's had big games. But ask the New York Knicks fan base whether or not he's a playoff level player after they beat them last year. Look at, again, Jalen Brunson Has he had enough playoff experience to even warrant the development of a playoff type ego? I don't know. Playoff Giannis might be on a stretcher to begin the playoffs, so I'm not sure how anybody believes that either. Like, again, great moments, consistent elevation of their games. Like playoff Jimmy? No. Playoff Jimmy is a thing.
Can I defend? I'm going to defend Jalen Brunson. I think that he's done enough now in 2 straight
Has
years
he?
with Dallas. I mean, how long has it been for Jimmy Butler? Like 4 years? How long do you need until the playoff alter? Jalen Brunson, what he did in Dallas 2 years ago, and with the Knicks last year, it's something, right?
He's a good player,
and he's only helped doing it. Yeah, he's a great player. So, and then Jason Tatum did have 51 points in the Game 7 against the Sixers. But you're right. Like, if every Celtics fan also wants to blame like a mildly hurt ankle in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, it kind of goes in the other direction of that. I guess I'm surprised by the fact that you dislike the commercial. I guess like the way I look at it is imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And this is all based off the Jimmy Butler thing. And I understand that some Heat fans are upset that Jimmy Butler isn't in the commercial. My argument is, well, the Heat are not technically in the playoffs yet, so we can't really do that. Was there another version of this commercial that existed if the Heat had gotten into that 6th seed and then they could start running this? Could the NBA have waited until the play-in games were over instead of trying to bill this as the start of the playoffs? Could you come out of maybe not, since the playoffs start this weekend and then the last play-in game is on Friday? I don't know. I'm not upset by this commercial at all. I kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool that our guy kind of made this thing a thing. Like I kind of think that that's pretty cool. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't buy that necessarily. Like to me, there's not from you. I'm saying that's fine. I mean, I know you're mostly playing devil's advocate anyway, but I just feel like
I'm not. I really don't care that they did this.
Nah, I think you do. I think you know what it is. It's like it's your thing. Like it's your thing. That the fans, the teams, Jimmy's thing. Like that's playoff Jimmy. Like we've got Spider already. We know what Tatum can or can't do. Like all these players can have their moments, but the idea of this, I coast through the regular season and then all of a sudden you take your game up significantly better. That's Jimmy's thing. Like for better or for worse, that's a lot of what's
it's not only Jimmy's thing. Years. Like there's other players who become better in the playoffs.
Who as significantly as Jimmy Butler? And again, to a larger point, I guess I think as a fan of the team, you kind of want it to be your thing. Like that's our guy. That's Jimmy Butler. You know, it's his campaign. It's his idea. The whole thing belongs to Jimmy. It defines him and it defines us to a certain degree. And so I personally just kind of feel that like, oh, you know what? You could have come up with something better, a little bit more creative than just riffing on something else. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should just be looking at it as, you know, again, it's a serious form of flattery, but I don't know if I necessarily buy it.
I guess I just don't get upset when like giant
campaigns
organizations come out with a like kind of lazily conceived ad campaign. I'm just like, okay, cool commercial, bro. What if 30 seconds of my life?
I'll take you back. I'll take you back in time. The playoffs in 2011. What if those playoff runs after the vitriol and the we versus us mentality that defined the beginning of the Big Three era? What if they had done a fake celebration similar to what the Heat put on with the introduction of Chris Bosh, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade, and it was Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce?
Are you talking about like the Mavericks or like whatever team actually doing it, or just like a commercial of it?
Like an NBA commercial of Boston's Big Three coming up from the floor.
Okay, so
the way
that would have been
and them did it.
Okay, after 2011, after they lost to the Mavericks
in 2011, like during to kick off the 2011
it depends.
playoffs.
If they were not making fun of okay, I see what you mean. I would have been okay with it. I don't care. It's a commercial. Get over it.
I am calling such BS on that. You would have thrown something at the TV. You would have been like, it's ridiculous. That's our thing. It was our Big Three. What are you talking about, dude? Like you forgot what we. Oh, okay. All right.
It's a commercial.
Okay, fair.
Maybe that's bad radio just to say I don't care, but I don't care.
I think you're lying.
I think it's the NBA and it's supposed to be fun. That said, real quick, who of all the guys that were in that commercial, Tatum, Brunson, Joker, Dame, Anthony Edwards, who is the least playoff thing?
Oh, I guess it's Anthony Edwards.
It kind of has to by default, I guess.
He hasn't really done much, you know. Like I liked his you know, Team USA appearances and stuff like that, but even then
that could change this year, by the way.
Yeah, well, he's not in it this year, so right?
Who
is he part of the 11-man team? I'm sorry, Anthony Edwards.
No, I'm talking about the playoffs. I'm talking not.
Oh,
not
yeah.
single
Oh, no,
season.
absolutely.
No, I'm talking about
Absolutely.
that could change this
Absolutely.
year for the Timberwolves. All right.
Tatum is fine. He's a good player regardless. I don't think that makes any difference. Brunson, again, we talked about that. And Jokic kind of dominates.
Damian
when he
Lillard,
wants.
like, does it matter that he hasn't been in the playoffs since 2021? That kind of matters, right?
It should. Plus, again, like nobody's calling him playoff Dame. It's Dame time. Like that's his thing. Again,
That's
like
true.
what if somebody did like it's Jimmy
right,
time?
Brunson
and he pointed
time.
at his
It's Jimmy
watch.
time. Maybe. Yeah, I guess. All right. I think most people are going to agree with you. I guess I just I just don't really care that much. I don't really understand the
vitriol.
I do have my top 5 playoff Jimmy series that we're going to get to in a second.
It's going to go really, really well. But you know what does go over well? eBay Motors, baby.
Boom,
Passion,
baby.
drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kit, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions to apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. We're on the road to 13,000 YouTube subscribers, so if you're finding us on YouTube for the first time or just haven't hit that subscribe button yet for some reason, hit that button now.
What possible
right now.
reason
Boom,
could you have
it's
not
over.
to
Like you
subscribe?
would have, if you did it, you would have been done with it, and you would have helped us. So it does go a long way in terms of supporting us. So please do go ahead and do that. Also, 5-star ratings and reviews on the podcast app. Top 5 playoff Jimmy series of all time. David, are you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. At number 5, I've got the 2022 series against the Philadelphia 76ers. Jimmy averaged 27, 7, and 5 in that series. He was absolutely dominant. Does it matter that the Sixers didn't have Joel Embiid for a couple of those games? A little bit. That's why it's down here at number 5, but it was still a great Jimmy Butler series nonetheless. Number 4, I've got the Atlanta Hawks in 2022, same year.
Ooh, that was a monster performance from him.
30 points a game, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and David, 3 steals per game on 54% shooting. You could make the argument that's his best series, but because it was the first round and the stakes were pretty low, I'm not going to put it there because the Hawks stink. So, I mean, it is what it is. So that's number 4. Number 3, the Boston Celtics in 2022.
Ooh.
Boston Celtics in 2022. We remember the great series that he had in that one, but a little slowed by the injury that took him out for a couple of those games, or limited him rather in a couple of those games, but ended that series in a huge way with big wins in Game 6 and nearly sending the Celtics home with a 3-pointer in Game 7. So that's number 3.
I don't know. You couldn't compare that to last year's series. Like how were his numbers in comparison to the series against Boston last year?
Better.
They were significantly better.
Yeah,
it just sucks that they include like a playoff Jimmy where they wound up losing as a result.
Well, I got one where they won.
No,
the Milwaukee Bucks in 2023.
Yeah, several of which they won, but yeah,
the 56 point outing, of course,
setting the tone.
That does it. But everything else sets the tone. Trash talking Drew Holiday while he was scoring over him, and basically, yeah, you're right. Set the tone for what that run last year ultimately ended up being. And number 1 comes at no surprise. NBA Finals against the Lakers in 2020, the triple-double, all of it was incredible. Just the imagery of him bent over near the stanchion, it goes down as one of the all-time great series. No Goran Dragic, no Bam Adebayo for most of that series. So he did everything he could do in that series. And that's going to go down as my number 1. So here's the final graphic here for those watching on YouTube. Top 5
I don't think
playoff
there's any
Jimmy
debating
series.
that. Like I think it's endearing him to like NBA fans in general, but certainly the Heat fans, like with everything that had happened. And that's why I mentioned that year was so impactful like everything leading up to the shutdown of the NBA, the pandemic, so much social unrest in the country and around the world, so many things going on in all of our lives, and then to be able to tune into basketball and see this incredible version of Jimmy, not just in the playoffs, but then in the finals specifically against LeBron James, where nobody gave Miami a chance, and he has historically dominant games to outplay perhaps the greatest player of our generation, maybe the greatest player of all time.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your podcast app.